Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Spain, Spanish language English subs, released in the year 2019, directed by Galder Gatzulu Urrutia, and this film is called The Platform. So The Platform takes place in this very strange prison-like environment, and this man wakes up and he finds out that he's got a cellmate who is a little bit weird, and the cellmate's been there for quite a while, and this is the main character's first day there. So the main character asks him what it's all about, and he says that each month you get put onto a different level. And the higher up you go, the better it is. And the lower you go, ultimately the worse it is, because the food has been rationed. So there's a big hole in the middle of the room, and it goes down. And so basically there is a big table of food that goes from the top level, and it gradually goes down each level, and those at the bottom will get the leftovers. And so basically it's about rationing out. It's caring for your fellow human being, but people don't do that. And so this main character quickly learns the ways of the world that he's now in, and he has to try and last. And so he gets a new roommate every time something bad happens, and the new roommates prove to be very different in characteristics, and it proves harder to actually survive this ordeal. And so we find out why this guy's here and what is in store for him at the end of the road, which I'm not going to give away, but if you want to know what unfolds, please go out there and see this film for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Platform. I was actually pretty intrigued with this film. I didn't know it existed. I saw it on Netflix and I thought, well, I definitely have to give this one a shot. Spanish horror films especially are very, very good if the past is anything to go by. And so when I saw the trailer, I thought this looks excellent. It looks like a very rough and gritty film. And I will say that there's a lot to like about The Platform, but I believe that this would have been a better film as a short movie, because it does exhaust its ideas to a point where at the end I was just left thinking as though it was dragging. And it was just basically being very repetitive. And so that's something I didn't like, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But what I liked about this film is that it is a social commentary about how we act as humans, and especially in today's situation where you hear on the news about toilet paper and hoard buying, panic buying, and humans, when they're in fear, how they won't share with others. And this is a movie that really symbolises that, is that there's food and it goes down each level, and this food has to last for everybody. But when someone panics and someone doesn't know what to do, they will take all the food and they won't care about the people beneath them. And that's something that is human nature, is that when panic sets in, all bets are off. And there's a movie called The Mist, Stephen King's The Mist, which surprisingly I haven't reviewed yet, but I will eventually. But there was a quote in The Mist that said, once fear kicks in, all bets are off. And that's exactly how human nature is. And as I said, that is exactly what's happening in society today. And so with all the really bad things happening in the world today, The Platform symbolises that mentality. And so I thought the main character, he was trying his best in order to ration the food, because he believes that maybe that will be an opportunity for him to get out of this living hell, but the rest of them can't do that because the rest of them are panicking. And so it's a very dreary movie. It's a movie that does take place in this massive complex. You've got a few flashbacks that indicate how these people came to be here and what this main character was all about, but the majority of the film just takes place in a very isolated and secluded environment, which again is very reminiscent of today's, symbolic of today's way of living, with self-isolation and all that kind of stuff, how damaging that can be on a mental level as well as a physical level. So this main character does go through a lot in this film, and I thought it was very, very interesting, the overall idea and the symbolism of human greed and human panic. And so that was very good. I thought cinematography, it matched the isolation. It was a very grey sort of colour that the movie had, and it is a very, very brutal film. It's a very hard movie to watch in some instances, because there is cannibalism and there is other forms of pretty horrific scenes of violence that I thought really does make it a very hardened sort of Spanish horror film, which is good because a lot of Spanish horror films in the past have actually been quite hard. And so as far as extreme cinema is concerned, Spain is definitely one to look for. And so not all the violence in this movie is graphic, but there is enough graphic material to satisfy even the more seasoned horror fan. So the acting was alright. It relies on limited characters, so the emphasis is on the performance, and I thought the performance was okay. And I thought that the dialogue was very quirky, the characters are quirky, and so that does captivate you for a certain time, which is ultimately my problem with this movie, is that it does captivate your interest for a certain time. When you've got a very limited setting, you've got very limited characters, you need something that's really going to pull through for the whole duration of the film. This movie that goes for quite a bit, well, it feels like it goes for quite a bit, is because it exhausts its ideas before the finish. It doesn't really ration out the ideas. Is that, alright, it's a symbolism of, as I said, human greed and the way society is, but after a while, it just starts to get a little bit repetitive. And so maybe maybe that was deliberate to show you the monotony of the situation, but I just thought to myself, all right, well, I'm looking at my watch way too much. Is that these ideas, I think it would have been a lot better if it was a movie that went for about half an hour, because it really could have got to the base and really didn't, you wouldn't have needed to have filler. So as a short film, I thought this would have been incredible, but as a feature film, there's not enough content to really sustain that interest. Is that there are areas that are very interesting, especially at the start, but once you get an idea into what's going on, it does start to get a little bit repetitive, and it basically just feels like deja vu, and it's deja vu for the sake of making it a feature movie. And so that was something I didn't like, but pushing that aside, it is still an interesting film. It does have very interesting concepts, but I just couldn't help believe that this was a short film stuck inside a feature film. So it's not the best Spanish horror film going around, but it's certainly interesting, and for that I would warrant it a view at least once, and as a result of that, I'm going to give The Platform 2.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later.